Hey, welcome to JetLagged, the podcast all about TCKs and what it's like to grow up overseas. I'm your host, Noah, and today I'm joined by three guests, and today we're going to do another country episode, and this country is, the country we're doing today is Türkiye. So y'all want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Kenzie, and I'm 18.
Hello, my name is Dawson, and I'm 12.
And I'm Camden, and I'm 15 years old.
Okay, cool. So how long have y'all lived in Türkiye?
We have lived in Turkey, it'll be 11 years in June, so quite a while.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
We're from America. We've lived in Türkiye for almost 11 years, as Kenzie said. And we lived in Bursa for 5 years, and in Antalya, where we live now, for almost 6.
That's cool. What is the language most commonly spoken in Turkey? And if depending on what it is, do y'all speak it?
The language most commonly spoken in Turkey is Turkish, and I believe, we all do speak it. If not, maybe not fluently, but we do. We can, have a conversation with people.
That's cool. Is there any other dialects or certain languages they speak in other parts of Turkey or specific regions?
Everyone in the country speaks Turkish, but depending on the region that you're in and where in the country you are, the dialect is different. So we have friends that live in a different part of Turkey, and some of the phrases and things that they say sound different, and I don't always understand it. But generally, you can get around with just speaking Turkish.
Okay. Is English a pretty widely spoken language there too?
Not really. In the big cities, you can get along with English, most likely. But once you move into the villages, maybe some of the younger, the kids and teens, probably will learn English in school, but not adults.
Okay, cool. What's the food like?
It's Mediterranean meets Middle Eastern cuisine. So lots of meats. We have kebab, lamb, chicken, lots of greens, yogurt, bread is a big thing.
Basically anything that is oily, greasy, just anything in that general area that's what they eat.
That's cool.
And lots of fruits and vegetables.
Is that also dependent upon the area or region, or is it pretty just widely the same throughout the whole country?
It's pretty much the same everywhere. Some different regions will have different twists on certain dishes, but it's pretty much reliable wherever you are in the country. If you're ordering a specific dish, you know what you're going to get.
Okay, cool. What are some misconceptions you have come across when regarding Turkey?
I feel like a lot of people think that Türkiye is a lot less developed than it is. For example, a lot of questions we'll get sometimes when we are in the States is how many camels have you ridden on? Or just, which are silly, but at the same time, I don't know if they're serious or not. They could be serious.
Yeah.
I just feel like a lot of people don't actually, it really is a developed country. Obviously there's villages and in the mountains and stuff, but it's a developed country. It's not.
Yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of people just don't really understand a lot about Turkey because technically it is the Middle East, region-wise.
Yeah.
But it's not really, it doesn't feel Middle Eastern to me. We visited some other countries and it's I think people just think it's a third world country and it's not.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's cities and, buses and trams and all the things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do they have camels in Turkey?
No, they do not.
Cool.
They have some in random parks to pay, but that's to make money. They don't actually have camels.
Another misconception is that a lot of people think that Turkish people, since they're part of the Middle Eastern part, that they're not very nice and that they might they're not they're just mean, I guess. But they're actually really nice and hospitable, and they if you need help, you can ask them, and it's not they'd be go away. They actually try to help you.
That's awesome. I realize that this is a very broad question, but what is the culture like?
It's a very communal culture, kind of like what Dawson was just saying. You watch out for your friends and your neighbors. They have a phrase that they like to use. It's called sıcakkanlı, which just means direct translation is warm-blooded, but it just means you're a warm person. You care about your friends, and people will sit in restaurants for hours on end. They will go out to breakfast, and it's a widespread, and you sit there probably for at least 3 hours minimum. You just go and hang out with people. They love their community.
That's awesome.
going off what Kenzie said, there's many, like, even just going to Turkey, you can, like, within the first, like, day, you can see many examples of, like, community. For example, sometimes, like, you might just see people randomly roll down their windows while driving and just start having a conversation with this random guy on the street.
That's cool.
And, like, they're just always helping, and they're just really, like, it goes back, they're just really nice.
Mm. So is it easy to make local friends?
Yeah, I think where we are currently, it's a much more touristy city, and there are lots of people from all over the world that come through. So I think a lot of the people there are they have their guard up more because not all tourists are very friendly.
Yeah,
and so,
that makes sense.
So when we first interact with people, they're like, oh, they kind of just treat us like everybody else. But once they realize, oh, we actually speak Turkish, we live here, then you have the occasional person that's just like having a bad day and is grumpy. Yeah. But generally, once they realize that we're not just a tourist, they're more friendly and they'll have a conversation and be excited to talk to us.
Do you stick out among Turkish people? And if so, how do you feel about that?
I feel like where we live now, since it is a very touristy city, we don't really stick out too much. And I feel like there are a lot of Turks there that don't look what you would stereotypically think Turkish people would look like. So not really, but definitely when we go up into the mountains or like where we used to live in Bursa, it would be harder since it's mainly Turkish people. There's not many tourists there. So we definitely stick out, but I feel like once they know that you speak Turkish and have lived like that, we've lived there for a while, I mean, they treat us like family. So
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I think adding to that, I go out by myself a lot and I ride buses and things, and a lot of the times people think either they don't question it or they think I'm like half Russian or half German, that I have a Turkish parent. And like Camden said, we used to stick out a lot more when we lived in Bursa because it really isn't a tourist city for foreigners. It's a tourist city for Turkish people, but they would love our hair because, it's blonde and you don't see that very often. I hated it when I was younger.
Interesting.
I hated sticking out and having everybody, want to pinch my cheeks and do all the things. Yeah. But I feel like, in Antalya, like we stick out. We're obviously not Turkish, but it's not like it's a rarity that they don't see foreigners. So like yes and no.
That makes sense. What are some things about the Turkish culture that your family has adopted?
We don't wear our shoes in the house. That's definitely something that Turkish people will take their shoes off when they go into their house. And now, even when we're in America and nobody else will take their shoes off when going into a house, I can't enter a house without taking my shoes off.
Interesting.
I just can't do it.
Yeah, we also, I believe Kenzie said earlier, we now will sit in a restaurant for a long time and just eat after we're done eating and talk. For example, if we go to restaurants in America, sometimes they'll tell us to leave because we're just sitting there afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've had people come up to us at restaurants and like waiters in America and they're like, "Can we get you anything else? Can we get you anything else? Can we pack this up in a box? Can we get you anything?" Like clear that they want us to leave, but we're just like sitting there having a conversation.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing that like we've definitely adopted is we always like interrupt each other. We're just
great.
Not a very like I feel like Turkish people do that a lot, or like when I'm at school and stuff and I'm like trying to talk, I will constantly be interrupted and it takes like a whole minute to get just one sentence out because people like either they disagree with you and they have to say it automatically. They can't hear your whole thought. Or like sometimes I'm trying to say something that they agree with, but they only hear the first part. They're not listening for the second part. So they like start arguing and then I finish it and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I agree." And I'm like...
So also jaywalking. That is something that happens a lot in Turkey. Yeah. And when we go to the States, I'm like, what? We can't just cross here? Like, why do we have to, why do I have to make a whole extra loop just to cross the street? It's not great, but.
Yeah, that's true. Because of all the interruptions, have you gotten used to people interrupting you when it comes to other places or?
Yeah, pretty much.
What are some things from Turkey that you miss when you're in your passport country, and vice versa? What are some things that you miss from your passport country when you were in Turkey?
One of the things that I definitely miss for both of them when I'm in either is just the food. Like when I'm in Turkey, I miss all the like the American cereals, the chips, and just honestly, just all of that like candy too. Basically, all the artificial stuff.
Yeah.
But when I'm in America, I always miss all like the natural like fruits and vegetables because they're also like they're really good in Turkey because they're natural. They don't have like a bunch of chemicals in them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the same for me. When we're in Turkey, I miss the food. In America, I also miss family, and this is really such a TCK thing to say, but the road signs, like when you're taking a road trip in Turkey, they're blue, and it's not like I hate the color blue, it's one of my favorite colors, but like the green signs in America, for some reason, it's like the weirdest thing. I don't understand why it's such a big deal to me, but I love them so much, and they bring me so much joy.
Never thought about that before.
I get so excited. I'm like, this road signs are green.
For me, when I'm in Turkey, I think, I just miss like family and food pretty much.
Yeah.
And being able to like I can fluently speak Turkish, but it's still just nicer, easier on the brain to be able to understand everything spoken to me.
That makes sense.
And then when I'm in the States, I think I just miss home. Miss my bed. And also I feel like just my friends that I have.
Yeah, I think the same for me when we're back in the States. I just miss my home and like all my clothes and being able to see my friends and just like having a sense of familiarity about me, because in the States, mostly where we are, I can't like go out by myself. I can't drive a car yet. I can't do all of those things, but when we're back home, I can, take the bus, I can take the tram, I can go out on my own. And you would think it would be the opposite since I can speak English in America and, I'm American and I can do that, but it feels better to be able to be out on my own in Turkey.
And also for me, just like the lack of really anything in Turkey, like there's so much more stuff in America, such as like even just like your occasional like Walmart. I just wish there was something like Walmart in Turkey. There really isn't. Or like even just like video game stores, there are none. Absolutely none, which is really annoying. Like you have to buy everything off like online, and it's all like doubled in price because of import fees. And it's just like it's really annoying to buy stuff.
Is there any way to like ship stuff from the States, or is that pretty hard?
A lot of times will either order things and have like grandparents bring them or friends. There's a lot of times where people will message people in the community and they're like, hey, do you have anybody coming back from the States that we can like send stuff in a suitcase, because it's just so much cheaper.
Yeah, that makes sense. What is something about Turkey that your average tourist would probably not know?
Now I don't know if it's been a while since I was younger. However, if you have a kid who's in like toddler to preschool, kindergarten, younger ages, if you, let's say you go to the store, or not store, but like the bazaar.
Farmer's market.
Yeah, farmer's market. And let's say if your kid like looks at something or just is obviously showing that they want something, it is very common that people will just give them to your kids.
Wait, what? So like for free?
They'll just like if your kid's hungry and like whining, then the people will just give your kid like a free banana or a free strawberry.
Yo, that's awesome.
Or
One time we were driving like in our Turkish friend's car, and he had this like Tasmanian devil, like those things that hangs from like the window shield inside. And I think it was either me or Camden, but we like one of us was like, oh, like that thing's really cool, and we just kept talking about it, and we're like, that's so cool. And the guy just gave it to us.
Was it like a living animal?
No, it was like one of those hangy things.
It was like a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Okay.
It was Taz.
I was like, yeah.
I don't know if you know.
yeah, no,
what
he
that
had
is.
a living animal in his car. They just gave.
I was
us.
like 3,
That's awesome.
and I just like loved it so much.
So
And
like
he was like,
families bring their young children and they'll get free stuff?
I mean, that's not like why you should go.
I'll take
Yeah,
a
for sure.
PlayStation 5.
It also does depend on where in Turkey you are.
Yeah.
Like in Antalya where we are, it's like very much a tourist city. That might not happen as often
Yeah,
as
that
if
makes
you were
sense.
somewhere else. Like when that happened, we were in Bursa, which is much more conservative and there's much less foreigners there. But yeah, that goes back to them being like a communal culture and just like caring about everybody.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you like this? Here, I'll give it to you.
Interesting.
So
So what would happen in the bigger, more touristy cities like Istanbul?
probably not in Istanbul.
cool.
I think yeah, I mean, it really depends on, like, where you are. If you're in a, you know, not in, like, the Grand Bazaar or any big major tourist place. Yeah, and again, that was, like, 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So.
That's still a cool fact, though.
Yeah. I think another thing that people don't expect is, this is just, like, the produce in Turkey is so amazing. Everything is fresh. Like, they have pazars once a week, which is, like, basically like a farmer's market where you can go and get all your fresh produce, and sometimes they even have, like, eggs and bread and nuts and, like, all of these things. And that's where we go every week, or my dad goes, and we'll go and buy, like, all our fruits and veggies. And also, fruit isn't, like, available all year round. Like, everything isn't. So in the summer, we have, like, the peaches and the nectarines and apricots and all of those, like, plums and all of those things. But then those go away in the fall. And then we have, like, strawberries aren't available year round. There's just, like, certain things you can't find all the time. I mean, like, you can find them at the store, but they're not great because they're not fresh.
So when you say a conservative city or more conservative, what do you mean by that?
Turkey is an Islamic country or Muslim country. That's the national religion. And depending on where you are in the country, if there's a lot of tourists, you know, people will walk around in shorts and T-shirts and all of the things, and people aren't necessarily as religious in those cities. I mean, you can find some. There are more conservative neighborhoods where, you know, it's mostly Turks, and there's covered ladies and all of those things. Where we used to live in Bursa, my mom and I, like, we would never wear shorts above our knees, and we always had to be respectful of the culture around us because, you know, we were guests and we wanted to make sure we weren't disrespecting them. But in Antalya, I don't really necessarily have to worry about that as much. We recently moved up to, like, a villagey area, kind of a little bit outside the city, and it's much... I sometimes will feel a little bit awkward when I, like, go to the bus stop to go into town if I'm wearing, you know, shorter shorts or something like that, just because I don't know, it's, like, more secular in town than it is up in the village, and so people are more religious and that sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have any stories of culture shock or language miscommunications that you would like to share?
When we first moved to Turkey, I was pretty small, so I don't remember much. But I do remember it was, like, I believe, like, a week or two after we had moved there. You know, everything was new. I didn't understand anything. I was pretty small. I think I was, like, 4 years old. So, yeah, the world's a lot bigger and scarier. But we were walking to a park or maybe to dinner, and there was some, I believe, police officers just chatting on the side of the road. And we passed them, and this one guy just picks me up and starts, like, pinching my cheeks. And it was terrifying. I didn't know what was happening. And that's just, apparently, now I know, that's just their way of, I was cute and they were friendly, so they decided to pick me up and pinch my cheeks.
That's awesome.
I feel like for me, I was 2 when we moved to Turkey, so I didn't have very much culture shock, but I feel like going back to America, it's always really weird because I can, like, understand people, and it's just like, whoa. Or when you're, like, on the side, like, in Turkey, when you're, like, on the street, just walking by people, and you might accidentally look at them. They kind of just look at you really weird and then, like, quickly walk away. Well, in America, you find yourself accidentally staring at someone. They look at you and they're like, hi, and they wave at you and they smile.
Yeah.
And it's just really weird, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I remember there was one time, it was probably, like, a month or two after we moved to Turkey. I was, like, 8 years old. I just turned 8. And we were waiting at a bus stop one day, and they have, like, benches at the bus stop, and I was standing on the bench, and I remember this old guy came, like, walking by, and he started, like, yelling at me, and he was, like, pointing at me, and he was, like, pointing at the ground, and I was like, I don't know. My mom looked at me, and she was like, oh, he probably, like, wants you to sit down because you're not supposed to stand on benches. And I was like, yeah, probably. So I sat down, and then later we had asked our friends about it who had lived in Turkey longer, and she was like, no, it's because you had your shoes on the bench. And, you know, I said earlier that Turks will take off their shoes before they enter the house and all of the thing because you're walking around and, you know, the bathrooms aren't always the cleanest and you're just walking around in dirt and, like, outside. And so to them, me putting my shoes on a place where they sat was, like,
Interesting.
It's, you're not supposed to do that. It's gross and whatever. And so,
That does make sense.
like, as an 8-year-old, I was like, why is this old man yelling at me for standing on a bench? Like, I didn't see anything wrong with that. But then looking back on it now, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, that's disgusting. You wouldn't do that. And then another funny story that I have is something that my mom has given me permission to share. But we had a bakery close to our house when we first moved there. It was probably like 6 months into living there. And you could go to the bakery and just get like balls of dough, and you could my mom would make like pizza, cinnamon rolls out of it, so she wouldn't have to make the dough from scratch.
That's really cool.
So one day, this was like the second time she had gone in because our friend had told her that she could do that, and she got really excited. So she went in, and in Turkish, the word for dough is hamur. So she goes to the guy, and she asks for yağmur, which is rain. And the guy was like, what? What do you want? And she asked again, like, I want yağmur. And he was like, hamur? And she was like, oh, yes, that's what I want. And we, like, laugh about it to this day. But she, like, went to the bakery and asked for a ball of rain, basically.
That's awesome.
And
that's really funny.
Yeah. It's something we still laugh about 11 years later.
I want the rain.
Yeah.
I want the rain so I can cook it.
Make it into cinnamon rolls.
Is there anything else that any of y'all would like to add before we close out?
I think I just want to say, like, about the Turkish people, like, we kind of touched on this when you talked about the culture, but they're just such warm people. Like, thinking, for me, I'm getting ready to head back to the States for college, and obviously, people in America, they aren't, like, grumpy or mean or anything, but I just love the Turkish community and the way that they care about people, and just love the country itself. It's weird to think about having to be somewhere that's not there, because that's home to me. I've been there for 11 years. So
another thing is that a lot of people who like live in America and other places, they try certain foods there, mostly like fruits and vegetables, and they try them and they don't like them in America or another country. And then like they come to Turkey and we like ask them if there's any foods they don't like, and they're like, oh yeah, and they say it's like some of these fruits and vegetables. And then we, like, ask them if they had any here, and they say no. So then, like, a lot of the time, they don't like them in America because it's all, like, chemically and, like, artificial and stuff like that. And then they try it in Turkey, and it's, like, really, really good because it's actually natural.
Yeah, we've had so many people come and visit us who say, like, oh, I don't like olives, I don't like this, and then they'll try them in Turkey, be like, these are amazing.
Yeah.
These are, like, the best things I've ever had in my whole life. Sorry.
That makes sense. That's something also I've noticed people here, not as much as now, but I've had a couple of people say that they love like red peppers more here for some reason.
Here?
Yeah, rather than the States. They're like, in the States it tastes like water, but here it actually tastes like something.
Another thing is that something that people don't really like I just find really funny is that you can be driving, say like on a highway or on some like road, when suddenly some random sheep just cross the road.
Yes.
It's crazy. Or, like, there's, like, dogs and cats everywhere, and they're so fat, and they just lay on the ground. And, like, the only times that I've ever seen them get up is if you put a chip on the ground, like, 5 feet away from them, they get up, grab it, go back, and eat it, and sit down, and just, like, go back to sleep.
That's awesome.
It's hilarious.
Or when they kill a cat.
Oh, yeah, we're not talking about that.
They kill cats?
Yeah,
We saw 2 dogs. Like, it was like
Two?
four,
It was like 5. They
4
all
dogs
grabbed it
that
and played
came.
tug of war.
We were at a park, and they literally like caught a cat, and they were like, it was great.
Ooh.
It was not amazing.
Ooh,
was
okay,
pleasant.
cool. Is there anything else y'all would like to add before outro?
Cows are many different colors.
Cows are many different colors. That's great.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of JetLagged. If you would like to send us any emails or any questions or any topic suggestions, you can email us. You can find us at jetlaggedpodcasts@gmail.com. Again, that is jetlaggedpodcasts@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to this week's episode, and we look forward to seeing y'all later.